When a ruthless billionaire CEO discovers the man she's falling for is standing on land her empire is about to destroy, she faces an impossible choice: sacrifice billions to save the only family she's ever wanted, or lose the two people who taught her that love can't be bought. A single father, a heartless mogul, a toddler who changes everything. One rainy night will set their worlds on a collision course neither of them saw coming. If you want to see how far a woman will go when money can't fix what she's broken, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The rain fell like it had a personal grudge against the world. Liam Carter stood under the flickering overhang of Morrison's Corner Market, jiggling a screaming 2-year-old on his hip while trying to figure out which bill he could skip this month. Electric or water, heat or food. The math never worked, no matter how many times he ran it. "Shh, Mia, come on, baby girl, we're almost home," he murmured, bouncing her gently. She didn't stop. She was tired, wet, and hungry, and honestly, so was he. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Another late notice. He shoved it back in his pocket. The bus wasn't coming. The route had been cut 2 weeks ago, something about budget reallocations, and now his commute home took twice as long. His shift at the warehouse had run over because Jenkins called in sick again, which meant Liam had to cover the loading dock solo. His back still ached from lifting crates that had no business being moved by one person. He shifted Mia to his other hip. Her tiny fists clutched his jacket, soaked through from the rain. He should have grabbed her raincoat this morning, but it was still in the dryer at the laundromat, and he didn't have enough quarters to finish the cycle. This wasn't the life he'd imagined. 3 years ago, he'd had a wife, a decent apartment, and a plan. Then everything fell apart in the span of 6 months. The divorce was brutal. Sarah had walked away from everything, including Mia, and Liam had been left holding the pieces of a life he didn't know how to rebuild. No family to fall back on. No savings. Just him and a baby who didn't understand why her mother stopped coming around. So he worked. Warehouse shifts, weekend grocery stocking, late-night freelance data entry, when Mia finally passed out. He survived on 4 hours of sleep and cold pizza. He wore the same 3 shirts on rotation. He hadn't bought new shoes in 2 years. But Mia was fed. Mia was clothed. Mia was loved. That was all that mattered. He started walking. The rain picked up, drumming against the pavement like 1,000 tiny fists. Mia whimpered, burying her face in his neck. He pulled his jacket over her head as best he could, even though it didn't do much. 6 blocks. He could make it 6 blocks. Halfway there, his phone buzzed again. He ignored it. Probably another creditor. They'd been calling non-stop since the medical bills from Mia's ear infection last month. $1,400 for antibiotics and a doctor's visit. Highway robbery, but what choice did he have? He rounded the corner onto Ashland Street and nearly collided with a woman stepping out of a black sedan. "Watch it," she snapped, jerking back. Liam stopped short, his boots skidding on the wet pavement. "Sorry, I didn't—" She wasn't listening. She was already moving past him, heels clicking against the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear. Expensive coat, designer bag. The kind of person who didn't ride the bus or worry about which bill to skip. Mia twisted in his arms, curious now, her tears momentarily forgotten. Her wide eyes locked onto the woman. And then, before Liam could stop her, Mia reached out. "Up," she said. The woman froze mid-step. She turned slowly, lowering the phone from her ear. Her expression was unreadable, sharp and cold, like she'd just been interrupted during surgery. "Excuse me?" she said. Mia stretched her little arms toward the stranger, fingers opening and closing. "Up, up!" Liam's face went hot. "I'm so sorry. She does this sometimes. She doesn't understand." The woman stared at Mia. Not with irritation exactly. More like confusion, like she'd just been handed a puzzle she didn't know how to solve. Mia wiggled harder, leaning so far out of Liam's grip that he had to adjust his hold to keep her from toppling. "Mia, no, we don't—" Liam started, but the woman held up a hand. "It's fine." Her voice was clipped, controlled. She glanced at her phone, then back at Mia, then at Liam, her gaze sweeping over his drenched jacket, his worn boots, the diaper bag hanging off his shoulder with a broken strap. She didn't say anything, but Liam could feel the assessment happening. He knew what she saw. A guy who couldn't afford an umbrella. A guy who probably couldn't afford much of anything. "She's persistent," the woman said, and there was something almost curious in her tone now. Yeah, well, she's 2. Persistent is kind of the default setting. Liam tried for a smile, but it came out tired. Mia made another grab for the woman, and this time her tiny hand actually caught the edge of the woman's coat sleeve. The woman looked down at the small fingers clutching the fabric. For a second, Liam thought she might pull away, might say something cutting and disappear into her car. But she didn't. Instead, she crouched down, slowly, carefully, until she was eye level with Mia. "Hello?" she said quietly. Mia blinked at her, rain dripping from her blonde curls. Then she smiled, that big goofy grin she saved for people she decided were safe. The woman's expression flickered, just for a second. Something unguarded, almost startled, like she'd forgotten what it felt like to be smiled at like that. Liam shifted his weight, unsure what to do. We should get going. She's soaked and... Do you live nearby?" the woman asked, still looking at Mia. "Yeah, just a few blocks." She straightened, brushing rain off her coat. "In this weather?" "Bus route got cut." She frowned, a small crease forming between her eyebrows. "That's inconvenient." Liam almost laughed. Inconvenient, that was one way to put it. "We manage," he said. The woman studied him for a moment, and Liam had the uncomfortable feeling she was seeing straight through every polite deflection he'd just offered. "I'll give you a ride," she said. "What? No, it's raining. You have a child. I have a car." She said it like the logic was airtight, like there was no room for argument. Liam hesitated. He didn't know this woman. Didn't know anything about her except that she had money, and Mia had taken an inexplicable liking to her. But Mia was shivering now, and his jacket was useless, and the next 6 blocks felt impossible. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." She nodded once, then turned toward the sedan. The driver, a middle-aged man in a dark suit, got out and opened the rear door without a word. Liam climbed in, settling Mia on his lap. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly floral. It was warm, dry, the kind of space that felt like it belonged to someone who had never once worried about late notices or medical bills. The woman slid in beside him, phone already back in her hand. "Where to?" "Corner of Ashland and 5th. She relayed the address to the driver, then went back to her screen, fingers moving across it with precise efficiency. Liam caught a glimpse of spreadsheets, graphs, strings of numbers that meant nothing to him. Mia, meanwhile, had twisted around in his lap and was staring at the woman again. "You're still looking at me," the woman said without glancing up. Mia giggled. The woman's fingers paused. She looked at Mia, and again that flicker crossed her face, like she didn't quite know what to do with the attention. "What's her name?" she asked. "Mia." "And yours?" Liam Carter." She nodded, filing the information away. "Victoria Hale." The name didn't mean anything to him, but the way she said it suggested it should have. They rode in silence for a minute, the only sound the hum of the engine and the rain drumming against the roof. Mia leaned her head against Liam's chest, her eyes drooping. "She's tired," Victoria observed. "Yeah, long day." "For both of you, I imagine." Liam glanced at her, surprised by the comment. It wasn't pity, exactly. More like an acknowledgement. "Something like that," he said. Victoria's gaze flicked to the diaper bag, the broken strap, the juice box sticking out of the side pocket. "How old is she?" 2, just turned 2 last month. "And her mother?" The question landed hard, even though it was asked casually. Liam's jaw tightened. "Not in the picture." Victoria didn't press. She just nodded, like she understood that some doors stayed closed. The car slowed, pulling up in front of a narrow brick building wedged between a pawn shop and a boarded-up diner. The paint was peeling. The front steps had a crack running through the middle. It wasn't much, but it was home. "This is it?" Liam said. "Thanks for the ride." He moved to open the door, but Victoria's voice stopped him. "Wait." He turned. She was reaching into her bag, pulling out a sleek black wallet. "Don't," Liam said quickly. She paused, looking at him. I know what you were going to do, and I appreciate the ride, I do, but we're fine." Her expression hardened slightly. "You're clearly not fine." "We're managing," he said, more firmly this time. Victoria's eyes narrowed, like she was trying to decide whether he was stubborn or stupid. Probably both. Pride doesn't keep a child dry, she said. No, but it keeps her father's dignity intact. Liam met her gaze evenly. I don't need a handout. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Mia yawned, oblivious to the tension. Finally, Victoria slipped the wallet back into her bag. Fine. Liam nodded, then pushed the door open and stepped out into the rain. Mia stirred, whimpering as the cold air hit her. Thank you, he said again, softer this time. Really? Victoria didn't respond. She just watched as he carried Mia up the cracked steps and disappeared into the building. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Back to the office, Ms. Hale? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were still on the door Liam had just walked through, on the dim light visible through the window of what she assumed was his apartment. Ms. Hale? The driver prompted. Yes, she said finally. Back to the office. But as the car pulled away, she found herself thinking about the way Mia had smiled at her. Like it was easy. Like it didn't require anything except existing in the same space. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her like that. Victoria's office was on the 43rd floor of the Hale Tower, a gleaming monument to steel and ambition that dominated the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the downtown grid, a sprawling network of lights and movement that never stopped, never slowed. She liked it up here. Removed. Untouchable. Her assistant, Jeremy, was waiting when she stepped off the elevator, tablet in hand, already rattling off the evening's agenda. The Singapore deal closed an hour ago. Legal needs your signature on the Patterson acquisition by 9 a.m. tomorrow, and the board wants a preliminary brief on the West Side development before the end of the week. Victoria shrugged out of her coat, handing it to him without breaking stride. Push the Patterson signing to 10. I'll have the West Side brief done by Thursday. Noted. Also, your mother called. Victoria's jaw tightened. Tell her I'm busy. I did. She said she'd call back. She always does. Jeremy followed her into the office, setting the tablet on her desk. Anything else you need tonight? Victoria glanced at the stack of folders waiting for her, the blinking message light on her desk phone, the inbox that never seemed to empty no matter how many hours she spent clearing it. No, she said. That's all. Jeremy hesitated like he wanted to say something, then thought better of it. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Victoria sat down, pulling the first folder toward her. A zoning proposal for a mixed-use development on the east side. Projections looked solid. Profit margins even better. She skimmed the report, making notes in the margins, circling figures that didn't add up. This was what she was good at. Numbers, strategy, outcomes she could control. But her mind kept drifting. Back to the rain. The little girl with the blonde curls. The man who'd refused her money like it was poison. She didn't understand him. Most people fell over themselves trying to get close to her wealth. They asked for investments, partnerships, donations. They smiled and schmoozed and angled for favors. But Liam Carter had looked at her like her money was the last thing he wanted. It was unusual. She pulled out her phone, typing his name into the search bar. Nothing came up except a sparse social media profile that hadn't been updated in years. No LinkedIn, no professional footprint, just a guy trying to survive. She shouldn't care. She closed the browser, setting the phone aside. She had 100 more important things to focus on. The West Side development alone was a $2 billion project, one that would reshape an entire neighborhood and cement her legacy as one of the most influential developers in the country. That mattered. A single father and his daughter? They didn't. But when she finally left the office 3 hours later, when she climbed into the back of her car and gave the driver her address, she found herself looking out the window as they passed Ashland Street. The light in Liam's window was still on. Liam set Mia down in her crib, pulling the blanket up over her tiny shoulders. She was already asleep, her breathing soft and even, one hand curled against her cheek. He stood there for a minute, just watching her. She looked so peaceful, so small. He thought about the woman in the car, Victoria Hale, the way she'd crouched down to meet Mia's eyes, like it mattered. The way she'd offered help, even when he'd turned her down. He didn't know what to make of her. Probably didn't matter. People like that didn't stick around in neighborhoods like this. She'd given them a ride out of the rain, and that was the end of it. He pulled the door halfway closed, leaving it cracked so he could hear if Mia woke up. Then he went into the kitchen and stared at the overdue bills spread across the counter. Electric or water? He rubbed a hand over his face, exhaustion settling into his bones. Tomorrow. He'd figure it out tomorrow. That Victoria couldn't sleep. She lay in her penthouse bedroom, staring at the ceiling, her mind refusing to shut off. The Singapore deal, the Patterson acquisition, the West Side project, and a little girl who'd smiled at her like she mattered. She rolled over, grabbing her phone from the nightstand. 2 a.m. She had a meeting at 7. She opened her email, scrolling through the usual flood of messages. Contracts. Proposals. Requests. And then buried near the bottom, a memo from her development team. Subject. West Side land acquisition. Final approval needed. She opened it, skimming the details. The project was moving forward on schedule. They'd secured most of the properties. Just a few holdouts left, small parcels that wouldn't be a problem. She scrolled down to the attached map, a color-coded grid showing the acquired land in green and the remaining parcels in red. One of the red parcels was on the corner of Ashland and 5th. Victoria sat up, staring at the screen. No. She zoomed in, double-checking the address. It was his building, Liam's building. She set the phone down, her pulse quickening in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine. This was a coincidence. It had to be. But as she lay back down, staring at the ceiling again, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just walked into something far more complicated than a rainy night and a ride home. And for the first time in years, Victoria Hale didn't know what her next move should be. The next morning, Liam woke up to Mia crying. He stumbled out of bed, bleary-eyed, and found her standing in her crib, tears streaming down her face. Hey, what's wrong, baby girl? She reached for him, and he scooped her up, checking her diaper, her forehead, looking for signs of a fever or an ear infection or any of the dozen things that could go wrong. Nothing obvious. She just clung to him, sniffling, and eventually the tears stopped. He carried her into the kitchen, setting her in the high chair while he started breakfast. Oatmeal. Again. They were out of eggs and the milk was getting low, but oatmeal was cheap and it filled her up. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, expecting another bill. Instead, it was a text from his landlord. Need to talk. Stop by the office when you can. Liam's stomach sank. That was never good news. Victoria arrived at her office at 6:30, an hour before her first meeting. She poured herself a coffee, black, no sugar, and pulled up the West Side development files. The project was massive. Luxury condos, high-end retail, a boutique hotel. It would transform the entire neighborhood, bringing in revenue and prestige. It would also displace about 200 people. That was the cost of progress. Victoria had made peace with it years ago. You couldn't build something new without tearing down what was old. That was how cities worked, how economies worked. But now, staring at the map, at the little red square on Ashland and 5th, she felt something unfamiliar twist in her chest. Guilt. She pushed it aside. This was business. Liam Carter was a stranger. The fact that they'd shared a car ride didn't change the reality of the situation. Her phone rang. Jeremy. Miss Hale, your 7 o'clock is here early. Send them in. She closed the file, locking her computer. Whatever she was feeling, it didn't matter. She had work to do. Liam knocked on the landlord's office door. Mia balanced on his hip. Come in, a gruff voice called. He stepped inside. The office was small, cluttered with file boxes and outdated furniture. The landlord, a man named Caruso, sat behind a desk that had seen better decades. Carter, Caruso said, leaning back in his chair. Thanks for coming by. What's this about? Caruso sighed, pulling a folder from the stack on his desk. I'm going to level with you. I got an offer on the building. Liam's grip on Mia tightened. What kind of offer? The kind I can't turn down. Developer wants to buy the whole block, tear it down, build something new. The floor seemed to tilt under Liam's feet. When? Sale closes in 60 days. Maybe sooner if the paperwork moves fast. And the tenants? Caruso spread his hands. You'll get notice. Relocation assistance, if the developer's feeling generous. But yeah, you're going to have to find a new place. Liam stared at him, trying to process what he was hearing. A new place? With what money? He was barely scraping by as it was. Who's the developer? He asked, his voice tight. Caruso flipped through the folder, pulling out a document. Hale Enterprises. The name hit Liam like a punch to the gut. Hale. Victoria Hale. He walked out of the office in a daze, Mia babbling in his arms, completely unaware that their world had just been pulled out from under them. Again. Liam didn't go straight home. He couldn't. His legs carried him down 3 blocks before he even realized he was walking, Mia bouncing on his hip, asking him questions he couldn't hear through the white noise filling his head. Hale Enterprises. Victoria Hale. The woman who'd driven them home in the rain, who Mia had smiled at like she was made of sunshine, was the same person about to rip the ground out from under them. He stopped at a bench outside the library, sitting down hard. Mia squirmed, wanting down, but he held her tighter than he should have. "Daddy, down," she protested, pushing at his chest. Just give me a second, baby." She went still, sensing something wrong in his voice. Her small hand patted his face, sticky from the banana she'd eaten in Caruso's office. "Daddy sad?" He forced a smile, one that felt like it might crack his face in half. "No, sweetheart, Daddy's fine." But he wasn't fine. He was the opposite of fine. 60 days. Maybe less. Where the hell were they supposed to go? He pulled out his phone, opening the browser with shaking fingers, and typed in Hale Enterprises. The search results loaded, page after page of articles, press releases, photos. Victoria Hale's face stared back at him from a dozen different angles. Shareholder meetings, ribbon cuttings, award ceremonies. She was everywhere, this untouchable figure in tailored suits and calculated smiles. He clicked on one article. Hale Enterprises expands urban footprint with West Side luxury development. There was a rendering of the project. Glass towers, manicured green spaces, people in business casuals strolling past high-end storefronts. It looked like something from a different planet. Nothing like Ashland Street. He scrolled down, skimming the text. Projected revenue, job creation, economic revitalization. All the buzzwords that sounded good in boardrooms and meant nothing to the people getting pushed out. His building wasn't mentioned specifically, but it didn't need to be. He knew how this worked. The city approved these projects because they brought in tax dollars. The developers came in, bought everything up, and the people who'd lived there for years just had to figure it out. Mia tugged on his shirt. "Hungry?" "I know, baby. We'll get lunch in a minute." He pocketed the phone, staring at nothing. The logical part of his brain told him this wasn't personal. Victoria probably didn't even know his building was part of the acquisition. She had people who handled that. Lawyers, project managers, guys in suits who signed papers and never thought twice about the names on the leases. But the rest of him, the part that was tired and angry and so damn sick of losing, didn't care about logic. She knew where he lived. She'd been inside his world, even if just for 10 minutes, and she was still going to destroy it. He stood up, settling Mia on his hip again. "Come on, let's go home." The word tasted bitter. Home. For now. When they got back to the apartment, there was an envelope taped to the door. Official notice from the building management. Liam tore it open, already knowing what it would say. 60-day notice of lease termination due to property sale. Relocation assistance information enclosed. He crumpled the paper, shoving it in his pocket, and unlocked the door. Inside, everything looked the same. The second-hand couch with the busted spring in the middle cushion, the kitchen table he'd found on the curb and sanded down himself. Mia's toys scattered across the living room floor, bright plastic in a space that had seen better days. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He set Mia down, and she immediately toddled over to her toy box, pulling out a stuffed elephant with one ear missing. Liam sank onto the couch, head in his hands. He needed a plan, but every plan required money he didn't have, time he couldn't spare, and luck that had run out years ago. His phone buzzed, a text from his boss at the warehouse. "Can you cover tomorrow morning? Double shift if you want it." He typed back without thinking. "Yeah, I'll be there." Double shift meant 16 hours on his feet, loading trucks and stacking pallets until his shoulders screamed. It also meant an extra $120, maybe more if they had overflow. It wasn't enough to fix this, but it was something. Mia walked over, elephant in hand, and climbed into his lap. "Read, Daddy." She shoved a board book at him, one they'd read 1,000 times. Brown bear, what do you see?" He opened it, his voice flat as he went through the familiar words. Mia leaned against his chest, pointing at the pictures, completely content. She had no idea. And he was grateful for that, at least. When the book ended, she looked up at him, her eyes bright. Again. Again, he agreed, starting over. Across town, Victoria sat in her office, staring at the West Side development file like it might catch fire if she looked at it long enough. She'd spent the entire morning in back-to-back meetings, approving budgets, signing contracts, making decisions that would shape the project for the next 2 years. It had all been routine, efficient, and yet she couldn't stop thinking about the address. Ashland and Fifth. She told herself it didn't matter. The acquisition was happening with or without her personal involvement. The legal team had already secured most of the properties. The few remaining holdouts would either settle or be bought out through eminent domain if necessary. Standard procedure. But the image of Liam Carter standing in the rain, soaked through, holding his daughter like she was the only thing keeping him upright, kept pushing its way to the front of her mind. She closed the file, leaning back in her chair. This was absurd. She didn't owe him anything. One car ride didn't create an obligation. Her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Dinner with her mother tonight at 7. Victoria groaned. She'd been avoiding Eleanor Hale for 3 weeks, but apparently her luck had run out. Her mother was relentless. A former socialite who'd built her identity around charity galas and country club memberships, Eleanor had never understood Victoria's single-minded focus on business. To her, work was something you did until you found a suitable husband, at which point you transitioned into philanthropy and event planning. Victoria had chosen a different path, one that didn't include husbands or garden parties or any of the things her mother valued. It had created a rift between them that never quite healed. She texted back, "Can't tonight, swamped." The response came 30 seconds later. "You're always swamped. I already made the reservation. 7 o'clock. Don't be late." Victoria sighed, setting the phone down. There was no getting out of it. At 6:45, she left the office, her driver already waiting downstairs. The restaurant was one of Eleanor's favorites, an overpriced French place downtown where the portions were tiny and the wine list was longer than the menu. Her mother was already seated when Victoria arrived, perfectly coiffed, diamonds glittering at her throat. "You're late," Eleanor said, not looking up from her phone. "Traffic," Victoria lied, sliding into the chair across from her. Eleanor set her phone aside, studying Victoria with the kind of critical eye that could find flaws in marble. "You look tired." "I've been working." "You're always working." Eleanor signaled the waiter, ordering a bottle of wine without consulting Victoria. "When was the last time you took a vacation?" "I don't need a vacation." "Everyone needs a vacation, darling. You're going to burn yourself out." Victoria resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "I'm fine." The waiter returned with the wine, pouring 2 glasses. Eleanor took a sip, then set it down delicately. "I ran into Margaret Calloway last week," she said, her tone casual. "Her son just made partner at his firm. Very successful, very handsome. Mother. I'm just saying, it wouldn't hurt to meet new people. You spend all your time locked in that office." "I like my office." "You like control," Eleanor corrected. "There's a difference." Victoria picked up her glass, taking a long drink. This was going to be a longer dinner than she'd anticipated. "How's the West Side project coming along?" Eleanor asked, switching topics. "On schedule." "I saw the renderings in the Times. Very impressive." "Thank you." Eleanor leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "There's been some pushback, though. Community groups, protesters. Are you worried?" Victoria shrugged. "There's always pushback. It doesn't change the outcome." "Still, bad press can be damaging." "I'm not concerned." Eleanor studied her for a moment, then sat back, something unreadable in her expression. "You're very much like your father, you know." It wasn't a compliment. Victoria's jaw tightened. "I'll take that as a positive." "He was ruthless too, single-minded. It made him very successful. It also made him very lonely." "I'm not lonely." "No?" Eleanor tilted her head. "When was the last time you had dinner with someone who wasn't a business associate or your mother?" Victoria didn't answer. Eleanor's smile was sad. "That's what I thought." They finished the meal in relative silence, the conversation drifting to safer topics. Eleanor's upcoming charity auction, a vacation she was planning to the south of France. Surface-level things that required no emotional investment. When the check came, Victoria paid, as always, and they parted ways on the sidewalk outside. "Take care of yourself, Victoria," Eleanor said, kissing her cheek. You're only human, whether you believe it or not. Victoria watched her mother's car pull away, then climbed into her own. Where to, Ms. Hale? The driver asked. She almost said home, but the penthouse felt too empty tonight, too quiet. Drive, she said. Just drive. They ended up heading east, weaving through the downtown grid and into the older neighborhoods beyond. Victoria watched the city change outside her window, the gleaming high-rises giving way to brick buildings and corner stores and streets that didn't look like they'd been updated in decades. And then, without planning it, they turned onto Ashland Street. The light in Liam's window was on again. Stop here, Victoria said. The driver pulled over, parking across from the building. Victoria stared up at the window, at the faint glow behind the curtains. What was she doing? This was insane. She had no reason to be here, no excuse for sitting outside his apartment like some kind of stalker, but she didn't tell the driver to leave. Inside the apartment, Liam was trying to get Mia to sleep. She'd been fussy all evening, fighting bedtime with every ounce of toddler stubbornness she possessed. He'd tried everything, stories, songs, rocking her until his arms ached. Nothing worked. Come on, baby girl, he murmured, pacing the small bedroom. You need to sleep. Daddy needs to sleep. Mia whimpered, her face buried in his shoulder. She was exhausted, he could tell, but something was keeping her wired. Maybe she could sense his stress. Kids picked up on that stuff, didn't they? He sat down in the rocking chair by the window, adjusting her in his arms. The motion seemed to help. Her breathing started to even out, her grip on his shirt loosening. He looked out the window, and his heart stopped. There was a black sedan parked across the street, the same one from the other night, Victoria's car. He stood up slowly, careful not to wake Mia, and moved closer to the window. It was her. He could see her silhouette in the back seat, just sitting there, staring up at the building. What the hell? Anger flared hot in his chest. Was this some kind of sick joke? Did she get off on watching the people she was about to displace? He laid Mia down in her crib, making sure she was settled, then grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Outside, the night air was cold, biting through his thin jacket. He crossed the street, his boots loud against the pavement, and knocked on the car window. Victoria's head snapped toward him, her eyes widening, the window lowered. What are you doing here? Liam asked, his voice hard. Victoria stared at him, and for a second she looked almost caught off guard. Vulnerable, even. Then her expression smoothed out, that cool mask sliding back into place. I was in the area, she said. Bullshit. Her eyebrow arched. Excuse me? You heard me. You don't just end up in this neighborhood. So what are you doing here? Victoria's jaw tightened. I don't owe you an explanation. You're buying my building, Liam said, the words coming out sharper than he intended. You're kicking me and my daughter out of our home, and now you're sitting outside like what? You want to see the damage up close? Victoria's face went pale. I didn't know. Didn't know what? That this was your building, not when I gave you the ride. I didn't make the connection until later. Liam laughed, a bitter sound. And that's supposed to make it better? No, it's just the truth. The truth, Liam repeated. Great. Well, here's another truth. In 60 days, I have to find a new place to live. With money I don't have, in a market I can't afford. So congratulations. Your project's moving forward right on schedule. Victoria flinched, and Liam hated that he felt a flicker of satisfaction at it. I understand you're upset, she said quietly. Upset? Liam's voice rose. I'm not upset, I'm furious. Do you have any idea what it's like to lose everything? To work yourself into the ground just to stay afloat, and then have someone like you come along and take even that? Someone like me, Victoria echoed, her tone cooling. Yeah, someone who's never had to worry about rent or food or whether the heat's going to stay on through winter. Someone who makes decisions from a boardroom and never thinks about the people those decisions destroy. Victoria's expression hardened. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension. Finally, Victoria looked away. I'm sorry. The apology caught him off guard. It sounded genuine, raw in a way he hadn't expected. Sorry doesn't change anything, Liam said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. I know. Silence stretched between them. Liam shoved his hands in his pockets, suddenly aware of how cold he was. Why are you really here? He asked, quieter now. Victoria hesitated, and for a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. I don't know, she said finally. I saw the address on the file, and I needed to see it. See what? The place. You. She paused. Mia. Liam's anger wavered, replaced by something more complicated. Confusion, maybe, or exhaustion. She's asleep, he said. Victoria nodded. Good. Another silence. You should go, Liam said. I should. But she didn't move, and neither did he. This project, Liam said. Can you stop it? Victoria's expression flickered. It's not that simple. That's not an answer. It's a $2 billion development. Contracts are signed, investors are committed. If I pulled out now, I'd be sued into oblivion. So that's a no. That's reality. Liam nodded slowly. Right, reality. He turned to walk away, but her voice stopped him. If there was something I could do, some way to help. I don't want your help, Liam said, not looking back. I just want you to leave us alone. He crossed the street and disappeared into the building, the door closing with a finality that echoed in the quiet. Victoria sat in the car, staring at the empty sidewalk. Ms. Hale? The driver said gently. Take me home, she said, her voice hollow. As the car pulled away, she caught one last glimpse of the light in Liam's window, and for the first time in her life, Victoria Hale didn't feel powerful. She felt small. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of evasion and uncomfortable silences. Liam threw himself into work, picking up every extra shift he could find. He worked the warehouse, stocked shelves at the grocery store, even took a weekend gig helping a moving company haul furniture. The money barely made a dent, but it kept him busy, kept his mind from spiraling into the panic that lurked at the edges of every quiet moment. He avoided Ashland Street as much as possible, taking Mia to the park on the other side of town, eating at the cheap diner 2 neighborhoods over. Anything to avoid thinking about the countdown timer ticking in his head. 50 days. 48. 45. Victoria, meanwhile, buried herself in the West Side Project with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. She attended every meeting, reviewed every document, micromanaged details she'd normally delegate. Jeremy started giving her concerned looks, asking if she was feeling okay, if she needed to take a day off. She didn't, because taking a day off meant thinking, and thinking meant confronting the fact that she couldn't get Liam's words out of her head. Someone who makes decisions from a boardroom and never thinks about the people those decisions destroy. She'd built her career on pragmatism, on understanding that progress required sacrifice, that you couldn't please everyone, that sentimentality was a liability in business. But now, every time she looked at the West Side renderings, all she could see was Liam's face, Mia's smile, the people her progress was erasing. It was Jeremy who finally forced the issue. Ms. Hale, we need to talk about the community meeting, he said, stepping into her office one afternoon. Victoria looked up from her laptop. What community meeting? The one the city council's requiring before final approval. Public forum. Residents get to voice concerns, ask questions. It's next Thursday. Victoria's jaw tightened. Can we skip it? Not without delaying the project by months, maybe longer, she swore under her breath. Fine, schedule it. Already done, 7 p.m. at the community center on Maple. Victoria nodded, returning her attention to the screen. But Jeremy didn't leave. There's something else, he said. What? There's been some organization, a tenants group. They're planning to show up in force. Let them. It doesn't change the outcome. Jeremy hesitated. They have a spokesperson, someone who's been pretty vocal in the neighborhood. And? His name's Liam Carter. Victoria's fingers froze on the keyboard. Jeremy watched her carefully. Do you know him? No, she said quickly. Too quickly. Jeremy's expression said he didn't believe her, but he didn't press. Just thought you should know. He left, closing the door behind him. Victoria sat back in her chair, her pulse hammering. Liam was fighting back. She didn't know whether to be impressed or annoyed, probably both. The community center was packed. Liam stood near the back, Mia on his hip, scanning the room. Folding chairs filled every available space. People pressed shoulder to shoulder, their faces tight with worry and anger. These were his neighbors. People he'd nodded to in passing, exchanged pleasantries with at the corner store. Now they were united by one thing, the threat of losing their homes. A woman named Maria Torres had helped him organize the meeting. She lived 2 floors below him, a single mother with 3 kids, and she'd been furious when she got the eviction notice. "We're not going down without a fight," she'd said, fire in her eyes. So they'd printed flyers, knocked on doors, spread the word, and people had shown up. The city council representative, a tired-looking man in his 50s named Brennan, stood at the front of the room, clearing his throat into a microphone. "All right, folks, let's get started. I know you all have concerns about the West Side development, and tonight's your chance to be heard. Representatives from Hale Enterprises will be here to answer questions and address." The door at the back opened, and Victoria Hale walked in. The room went silent. She was flanked by 2 men in suits, lawyers probably, and she moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about whether people liked her. Liam's grip on Mia tightened. Victoria's eyes swept the room, and for a fraction of a second, they landed on him. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her gaze. Recognition. Maybe guilt. Then she looked away, taking a seat at the table up front. Brennan continued. "Ms. Hale, thank you for joining us. I think it's best if we start with questions from the community. Who wants to go first?" Hands shot up all over the room. For the next hour, people stood and spoke. They talked about rising rents, about being priced out of neighborhoods they'd lived in for decades, about the fear of ending up on the street. Victoria listened, her face neutral, occasionally whispering to the lawyers beside her. She answered questions with polished efficiency, citing economic studies, tax revenue projections, promises of affordable housing units that everyone in the room knew would never materialize. It was a performance, a well-rehearsed script designed to check boxes and move the project forward, and it was working. Brennan was nodding along, taking notes, looking satisfied that due process was being followed. Finally, Maria stood up. "What about relocation assistance? You're kicking out 200 people. Where are we supposed to go?" Victoria's expression didn't change. "We're offering a relocation package to all affected tenants. The details are outlined in the notices you received." "A relocation package," Maria repeated. "You mean the $2,000 that won't even cover first month, last month, and a deposit in this city?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "We're working within industry standards," Victoria said calmly. "Industry standards," Maria shot back. "You're a billionaire. You could do more. You just don't want to." Victoria's jaw tightened, but she didn't take the bait. "I understand your frustration, but—" "No, you don't," Liam said. Every head in the room turned toward him. Victoria's eyes locked onto his, and this time she didn't look away. "You don't understand," Liam continued, his voice steady, "because you've never had to choose between paying rent and feeding your kid. You've never had to work 3 jobs just to stay in a building that's falling apart. You've never had to look at your daughter and wonder where you're going to be in 2 months." The room was dead silent. "This isn't just business to us," Liam said. "This is our lives. And you're treating us like we're obstacles, like we're just numbers on a spreadsheet that need to be cleared out so you can build your luxury condos." Victoria stood slowly, and the air seemed to shift. "You're right," she said. The room collectively held its breath. "I don't understand what it's like to live the way you do," Victoria continued, her voice quiet but clear. "I can't. My life has been very different, but that doesn't mean I don't see you, or that I think you're just numbers." Liam's eyes narrowed. "Then prove it." "How?" "Stop the project." Victoria's expression hardened. "I can't do that." "Can't or won't?" "Both." The honesty of it seemed to catch everyone off guard. "This project is happening," Victoria said, addressing the room now. "That's the reality. But I can make sure the relocation assistance is better. Substantially better. And I can commit to prioritizing current residents for the affordable housing units." "How many units?" someone called out. 50. Laughter, bitter and sharp, echoed through the room. 50 units for 200 people, Maria said. "You're joking." "It's better than nothing," Victoria said. "It's an insult," Liam shot back. Victoria's gaze returned to him, and for a moment the rest of the room seemed to fade away. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, and there was an edge of frustration in her voice now. "That I'm going to throw away a $2 billion project because it's the right thing to do? I can't. That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" Liam demanded. "Liam." "I don't know." The words came out louder than she intended, and Victoria stopped, visibly collecting herself. I don't know, but I'm trying. The room erupted into arguments, people shouting over each other, Brennan banging his gavel and calling for order. Victoria stood there, looking more shaken than Liam had ever seen her. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out. Liam handed Mia to Maria and followed. He caught up with her in the parking lot, just as she was reaching her car. Running away? He called. Victoria spun around, her eyes flashing. What do you want from me, Liam? I want you to do the right thing. The right thing, she repeated, laughing without humor. Do you have any idea how much money is tied up in this project? How many contracts I'd be breaching? How many people I'd be letting down? What about the people you're kicking out? I'm trying to help them by offering scraps. They were yelling now, standing in the middle of the parking lot, and Liam didn't care who heard. You think I don't feel anything? Victoria's voice cracked, just slightly. You think I don't know what this is costing? I see it every time I look at that damn file, every time I think about Mia's face, but I can't just walk away. I can't. Why not? Because it's all I have. The words tore out of her, raw and desperate. This company, this work, it's the only thing I've ever been good at, the only thing that's ever made sense, and if I lose that, I lose everything. Liam stared at her, and for the first time he saw past the suits and the coldness and the billion-dollar empire. He saw someone who was just as scared as he was. You're wrong, he said quietly. Victoria wiped at her eyes, angry at herself for the tears. About what? You have more than this. You just don't see it yet. She looked at him, something breaking in her expression. I don't know how to stop, she whispered. Then learn. They stood there, the night air cold around them, and neither of them knew what to say next. Finally, Victoria got into her car, but before the door closed, she looked at him one more time. I'm sorry, she said again. And this time, Liam believed her. The drive back to her penthouse felt longer than usual. Victoria sat in the back seat, staring at her reflection in the window, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Her makeup was smudged from tears she'd tried to hide. Her carefully constructed composure cracked wide open in a parking lot in front of a man she'd known for all of 3 weeks. She'd never done that before, never let anyone see her break. When the car pulled up to her building, she didn't move right away. Ms. Hale, the driver asked gently. I'm fine, she said, the lie automatic. She rode the elevator up to the 48th floor, her heels clicking against the marble as she walked into the penthouse. The space was immaculate, professionally decorated, every surface gleaming. It looked like a magazine spread, cold, perfect, empty. She dropped her bag on the counter and poured herself a glass of wine, then stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Millions of lights stretched out before her, each one representing a life she'd never touch, a story she'd never know. Somewhere down there, Liam was putting Mia to bed, reading her a story, trying to figure out where they'd go in 43 days. Victoria's phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy. Board meeting moved to tomorrow at 9. They want an update on Westside. She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled up the project file on her tablet, scrolling through page after page of financials, contracts, architectural plans. 2 years of work. Hundreds of millions of dollars already committed. Investors who'd signed on because they trusted her vision. And at the center of it all, a little red square on Ashland and Fifth. She closed the tablet, setting it aside, and finished her wine in one long swallow. Liam was right. She could do more. She could offer real relocation packages, could build 100 affordable units instead of 50, could delay the project until every displaced tenant had somewhere to go. But that would cost money, a lot of money. And it would set a precedent, one that would make every future project harder, every negotiation more complicated. Her father's voice echoed in her head, the same lecture he'd given her 1,000 times when she was learning the business. Business isn't personal, Victoria. The moment you let emotions dictate decisions, you lose. Stay cold, stay focused, win. She'd built her empire on that advice. But tonight, alone in her perfect empty penthouse, winning felt like the loneliest thing in the world. Liam didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Mia's soft breathing through the baby monitor. The community meeting kept replaying in his head, every word, every look Victoria had given him. I don't know how to stop. He believed her. That was the problem. He believed that she was trapped just as much as he was, caught in a machine she'd built but couldn't control. It didn't make him less angry, but it made things more complicated. Around 3 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went into the kitchen, making coffee he didn't need. The eviction notice was still on the counter, smoothed out from where he'd crumpled it. 43 days. He'd been looking at apartments online, what little he could find in his price range. Most were even worse than his current place. Smaller, farther from his jobs, in neighborhoods he didn't know. And none of them would take him without first month, last month, and a security deposit he couldn't afford. He could ask Maria if she knew anyone, but she was in the same boat. Everyone was. The coffee finished brewing, bitter and strong, and he took it to the couch, pulling out his phone. He didn't know why he did it. Impulse, maybe. Or stupidity. But he opened his messages and typed out a text to the number Victoria had given him at the community meeting, the one she'd put on the informational handouts for questions and concerns. "You said you're trying. Prove it." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. The response came faster than he expected. It was 4 in the morning. She should have been asleep. "What do you want me to do?" Liam stared at the screen, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. What did he want? For her to cancel the project? That wasn't going to happen. For her to wave a magic wand and fix everything? That was a fairy tale. He typed back, "I want you to see what you're destroying. Not from a boardroom, not from a file. I want you to meet the people who live here." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "When?" "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, corner store on Ashland." The dots pulsed for a long time. Then, "I'll be there." Liam set the phone down, wondering if he'd just made a mistake. Victoria showed up at 1:55, which told Liam she'd been nervous enough to arrive early. She was dressed down, or at least what passed for dressed down in her world. Dark jeans, a cashmere sweater, expensive leather jacket. She still looked like money, but at least she wasn't wearing a suit. He was waiting outside the corner store, Mia on his hip. She'd insisted on coming, and he didn't have anyone to watch her anyway. Victoria's car pulled up to the curb, and she stepped out, her eyes immediately finding his. "You came," Liam said. "I said I would." Mia's face lit up. "Toria!" Victoria's expression softened, just slightly. "Hello, Mia." Mia reached for her, and before Liam could stop it, Victoria had stepped closer, letting Mia grab onto her jacket sleeve. "She remembers you," Liam said, surprised. "Kids are better at that than adults." They stood there awkwardly for a moment, neither sure what came next. "So," Victoria said, "what now?" "Now I introduce you to your collateral damage." He led her down Ashland Street, pointing out buildings, telling her who lived where. Mrs. Chen, who'd run the alteration shop on the corner for 30 years. The Rodriguez family, who had 4 kids crammed into a 2-bedroom. Old man Hayes, a veteran who'd lived in the same apartment since 1987. Victoria listened, her face unreadable. They stopped at Maria's building and Liam knocked on her door. She answered with a dish towel in her hands, flour on her cheek, looking harried. "Liam, I'm in the middle of..." She stopped when she saw Victoria. "Oh. Maria, this is Victoria Hale. Victoria Maria Torres, she lives 2 floors below me." Maria's expression hardened. "I know who she is." "Can we come in?" Liam asked. "Just for a minute." Maria hesitated, then stepped aside. "Fine, but the place is a mess." The apartment was small, cluttered with toys and school papers, and the general chaos of 3 kids under 10. Maria's youngest was at the kitchen table, coloring. The older 2 were in the living room, arguing over a video game. "This is what you're demolishing," Liam said quietly. "This is real." Victoria looked around, and something in her expression shifted. Not pity, something deeper. Recognition, maybe. "How long have you lived here?" she asked Maria. 8 years. My husband and I moved in right after we got married. He died 4 years ago. Heart attack. Now it's just me and the kids." "I'm sorry." Maria's jaw tightened. "Are you? Because your relocation package won't even cover moving costs, let alone a new place. I've been looking. Everything in my price range is either condemned or 2 hours from the kids' school." "What would help?" Victoria asked. The question seemed to catch Maria off guard. What would actually help, specifically? Maria glanced at Liam, uncertain. He nodded. 6 months' rent, Maria said. Paid up front so landlords will actually consider me. And help finding a place that's near the school so I don't have to pull my kids out mid-year. Victoria pulled out her phone, making notes. What else? Moving expenses. I can't afford movers, and I can't do it myself with 3 kids. Done. Maria blinked. Done. I'll have my assistant reach out tomorrow. We'll set it up. Just like that? Victoria looked up from her phone. You asked. I'm answering. Maria's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly turned away, wiping them with the dish towel. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're settled. They left a few minutes later, Mia waving goodbye to Maria's kids as they went. Outside, Victoria was quiet, her expression distant. That was one person, Liam said. There are dozens more. I know. Can you do that for everyone? Victoria stopped walking, turning to face him. If I commit to that level of assistance for every displaced tenant, it'll cost the company upwards of $20 million. Is that too much? It's a lot. But is it too much? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at Mia, who was playing with the zipper on Victoria's jacket, completely oblivious to the weight of the conversation happening above her head. No, Victoria said finally. It's not too much. Liam felt something loosen in his chest. Not hope, exactly, but something close. There's someone else I want you to meet, he said. He took her to the community center where a group of older residents gathered every afternoon for coffee and cards. Most of them had lived in the neighborhood for decades, watching it change around them, holding on through economic shifts and urban decay. When Victoria walked in, the room went silent. Liam introduced her to Mr. Patterson, who'd worked at the steel mill before it closed. To Mrs. Okoye, who'd immigrated from Nigeria in the 70s and raised 5 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment. To Danny Chen, who'd taken over his mother's alteration shop and was trying to figure out where to move the business. Victoria sat with them, listening to their stories, asking questions. She didn't offer excuses or corporate talking points. She just listened. And slowly, the hostility in the room began to shift. Not to trust. Not yet. But to something less sharp. Curiosity, maybe. Why are you doing this? Mrs. Okoye asked. Why come here and listen to us? It doesn't change anything. Victoria considered the question. Because I need to understand what I'm asking you to give up, and because someone told me I should learn to see beyond the boardroom. She glanced at Liam when she said it, and he felt his face warm. They stayed for over an hour, and by the time they left, Victoria had pages of notes on her phone and a deeper understanding of exactly what the West Side project would cost. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Thank you, Victoria said, for today. Don't thank me. Just do something with it. I will. She paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you invite me here? After everything, you could have just fought me at the meeting and left it at that. Why give me a chance to see this? Liam shifted Mia to his other hip, thinking. Because I saw something in the parking lot when you said you didn't know how to stop. I don't think you're a bad person, Victoria. I think you're stuck. And maybe if you saw what I see every day, you'd find a way to get unstuck. Victoria's eyes shimmered and she looked away quickly. I don't know if I can. You won't know unless you try. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Mia, sensing the emotion in the air, reached out and patted Victoria's cheek. No sad. Victoria laughed, a watery sound, and caught Mia's hand. I'm okay, sweetheart. "'Kay," Mia agreed, satisfied. They stood there for a moment, the 3 of them, and something shifted. Something fragile and uncertain, but real. I should go, Victoria said. I have a board meeting in the morning. Good luck. I'll need it. She started toward her car, then stopped. Liam? Yeah? Would it be okay if I came back to check in on people, see how the relocation process is going? Liam studied her, looking for signs of performance, of corporate damage control. But all he saw was genuine uncertainty. Yeah, he said. That'd be okay. Victoria smiled, a small, hesitant thing. Then she got in her car and drove away. Liam watched the taillights disappear, wondering what the hell he'd just started. The board meeting was brutal. Victoria sat at the head of the conference table, facing 12 of the most powerful investors in the city, all of whom had very strong opinions about how she should be running her company. The community pushback is creating negative press, one of them said, a man named Garrison, who'd made his fortune in real estate speculation. We need to control the narrative. We're working on it, Victoria said. Working on it isn't good enough. This project is already behind schedule. By 2 weeks, that's hardly... 2 weeks is millions of dollars, another board member cut in. We can't afford delays. Victoria's jaw tightened. I'm aware of the financials. Are you? Garrison leaned forward. Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you're getting soft. Community meetings, relocation packages, personally visiting tenants. That's not your job. Your job is to execute the project and maximize returns. My job, Victoria said, her voice cold, is to build sustainable developments that don't destroy communities in the process. Since when? The question hung in the air, and Victoria realized with a jolt that he was right. Since when had she cared about communities? She'd spent her entire career prioritizing profit over people, efficiency over empathy. Since a 2-year-old girl had smiled at her in the rain, since an exhausted single father had called her out for treating people like numbers, since she'd started to wonder if winning was worth it if you were the only one left standing. Since now, she said. Garrison's eyes narrowed. This is about that Carter guy, isn't it? The one from the meeting. This is about doing the right thing. The right thing, Garrison repeated, his tone mocking. Victoria, we're not running a charity. We're running a business. And if you can't separate personal feelings from professional decisions, maybe you're not the right person to lead this project. The room went dead silent. Victoria's hands clenched under the table. Are you questioning my leadership? I'm questioning your judgment. Then let me be clear. Victoria stood, placing her palms flat on the table. I am going to make sure every displaced tenant from this project has adequate relocation assistance. I am going to increase the affordable housing units, and I am going to do it in a way that doesn't compromise the project's viability. If any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. No one moved. Good, Victoria said. Meeting adjourned. She walked out before anyone could respond, her heart pounding. Jeremy caught up with her in the hallway. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen you do. Probably both. Garrison's going to fight you on this. Let him try. Back in her office, Victoria pulled up the West Side financials, running numbers until her eyes blurred. If she increased relocation assistance in affordable units, she'd need to cut costs somewhere else. Scale back the luxury finishes, reduce the retail space, find cheaper contractors. It was possible. Tight, but possible. Her phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Mia keeps asking when Toria is coming back. No pressure, but apparently you made an impression. Victoria smiled despite herself, typing back. Tell her soon, I'm working on something. Anything you can share? Not yet, but I think you'll like it. She hoped that was true. Over the next week, Victoria became a regular presence on Ashland Street. She met with tenants, took notes on their situations, worked with her team to develop individualized relocation plans. She visited Maria 3 more times, helping her look at apartments, even putting in a good word with a landlord who was hesitant about renting to a single mother. She saw Danny Chen's alteration shop and connected him with a property manager who had affordable commercial space across town. She helped Mrs. Okoye apply for senior housing assistance. And every other day, she stopped by Liam's apartment. At first, the visits were brief. Updates on the relocation process, questions about other tenants, but gradually they started lasting longer. Victoria would stay for dinner, sitting on Liam's worn couch while Mia played at their feet, eating takeout from the Thai place down the street. They talked about everything except the project. Liam told her about his life before Mia, the marriage that fell apart, the slow process of rebuilding. Victoria told him about growing up in her father's shadow, the pressure to succeed, the loneliness that came with always being the smartest person in the room. You're not lonely now, Liam observed one evening. Victoria looked at him, at Mia asleep on her lap, and realized he was right. No, she said quietly. I'm not. Something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. Liam cleared his throat. I should put her to bed. He lifted Mia carefully, and Victoria immediately felt the absence of her warmth. When he came back, the mood had shifted, tension crackling in the small space. Victoria, Liam started. I know, she said quickly. This is complicated. That's one word for it. You're still losing your home because of my project. Yeah, and I'm still the billionaire CEO who's making it happen. Yeah. They looked at each other. But Mia likes you, Liam said, and I trust her judgment more than my own sometimes. Victoria laughed, a soft sound. She's a good judge of character. She is. The silence stretched, and Victoria knew she should leave. This was crossing lines, blurring boundaries that needed to stay clear. But she didn't move. I'm trying to fix this, she said. The relocation plans, the housing assistance. I'm trying. I know you are. But it's not enough. No, Liam agreed. It's not. Victoria's chest tightened. I don't know what else to do. Liam crossed the room, stopping in front of her. You could cancel the project. I can't. You keep saying that. Because it's true. The financial penalties alone would destroy the company. I'd be sued by every investor, every contractor. I'd lose everything. Would that really be so bad? Victoria stared at him. Yes, this company is all I have. That's not true anymore. The words hit her like a physical blow. You have people who are starting to trust you, Liam continued. You have Maria's kids who drew you a thank you picture. You have Danny Chen who told me you saved his business. You have Mia who lights up every time you walk through the door. That's not the same as, and you have me. Victoria's breath caught. Liam stepped closer. I'm not saying I have this figured out. I'm not saying it's not complicated or messy or probably a terrible idea. But I see you, Victoria, not the CEO, not the billionaire, you. And I think you're worth more than any project. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Care about something more than winning. Liam smiled, reaching up to brush a tear from her cheek. You're already doing it. Before she could overthink it, before logic and fear could talk her out of it, Victoria closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Liam answered by pulling her closer, his hands gentle on her waist, kissing her back with a tenderness that made her chest ache. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victoria rested her forehead against his. This is insane, she whispered. Completely. It won't work. Probably not. But? Liam smiled. But I want to try anyway. Victoria kissed him again, and for the first time in years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth more than winning. Across town, in the Hale Enterprises boardroom, Garrison was making calls. Quiet, careful calls to the other board members, planting seeds of doubt, building a case. Victoria Hale was compromised, emotionally involved, a liability. And if she wouldn't step aside willingly, he'd make sure she was removed. The first domino was already falling. Victoria just didn't know it yet. Victoria left Liam's apartment at midnight, her lips still tingling, her mind spinning. The driver didn't ask questions when she climbed into the back seat, looking thoroughly different from the woman who'd arrived hours earlier. She could see it in the rearview mirror. Something in her expression had softened, like a wall coming down brick by brick. She touched her fingers to her mouth, remembering the way Liam had kissed her. Not like she was something to conquer or a prize to win, just like she was someone worth holding on to. Her phone buzzed. A text from him. Get home safe. Mia already asked when you're coming back tomorrow. She smiled, typing back. Tell her I'll bring her those cookies she liked. You're going to spoil her. That's the plan. She leaned back against the seat, watching the city blur past, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't think about the West Side Project. She thought about Mia's laugh, about the way Liam looked at her like she was more than her net worth, about how good it felt to be wanted for something other than what she could provide. The feeling lasted exactly 12 hours. Victoria walked into her office the next morning to find Jeremy waiting with an expression she'd never seen before. Panic, barely controlled. We have a problem, he said. She set down her coffee. What kind of problem? Board meeting, emergency session. They called it an hour ago. Victoria's stomach dropped. On whose authority? Garrison's. He's claiming urgent business concerns. He can't call a board meeting without my approval. Jeremy's silence said everything. Victoria grabbed her tablet and headed for the conference room, her heels sharp against the marble. When she pushed open the doors, all 12 board members were already seated, Garrison at the head of the table. Her seat. "You're in my chair," Victoria said, her voice ice. Garrison didn't move. "Have a seat, Victoria." "That is my seat." "Not anymore." The words hit like a slap. Victoria looked around the table, reading the expressions, some uncomfortable, some carefully neutral, a few openly hostile. "What's going on?" she demanded. Garrison slid a folder across the table. "We've been reviewing your recent decisions regarding the West Side project, the increased relocation packages, the expanded affordable housing, the personal involvement with displaced tenants. Those decisions are well within my authority as CEO. They're also costing the company tens of millions in reduced profit margins." Garrison opened his own folder, pulling out a spreadsheet. "Your changes have pushed the project $23 million over budget. That's unacceptable. It's responsible development. It's emotional decision-making." Garrison's eyes were cold. "You've become personally involved with one of the displaced tenants, a man named Liam Carter. Is that correct?" Victoria's blood ran cold. "My personal life is none of this board's business." "It is when it compromises your judgment." Garrison pulled out another document, and Victoria's heart stopped. It was a photo, her and Liam standing outside his apartment building, too close, his hand on her face. "You've been surveilling me." "We've been protecting our investment," Garrison corrected. "And what we've found is a CEO who's let personal feelings cloud her professional obligations. You're making decisions based on emotion, not logic. That's a liability we can't afford." Victoria's hands clenched. "I've built this company from nothing. Everything you see, every dollar in profit, every successful project, that's because of me. You don't get to question my judgment." "We're not questioning it," another board member said, a woman named Chen who'd been silent until now. "We're removing it from the equation." The room tilted. "You're firing me." "We're offering you a choice," Garrison said. "Step down voluntarily, take a generous severance package, and walk away with your reputation intact. Or we'll call a vote right now, remove you as CEO, and make this public. Your decision." Victoria stared at him, at all of them. These people she'd worked with for years, who'd made fortunes off her vision, her sacrifice, her relentless drive. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter?" "Yes," Garrison shrugged. "Since you started choosing social work over shareholder value. You changed, Victoria. You got weak, and weakness doesn't lead companies." Victoria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. "I need time to think. You have an hour." She left the conference room, her legs somehow carrying her back to her office. Jeremy followed, closing the door behind them. "What are you going to do?" he asked. Victoria sank into her chair, staring at the city beyond the windows. Her city, the skyline she'd helped shape. "I don't know." Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. A text from Liam. "Mia's asking about those cookies. No rush, though. Whenever you're free." She stared at the message, at the simple kindness in it, and something inside her cracked. She'd built an empire. She'd sacrificed everything for this company, this office, this view, relationships, friendships, any semblance of a life outside these walls. And now they were taking it away because she dared to care about something other than profit margins. Because she'd chosen people over numbers. Because she'd fallen for a man who saw her as human instead of a machine. Jeremy was watching her carefully. "Victoria?" "They're right," she said quietly. "What?" "I have changed. I'm not the same person I was 2 months ago, and I don't want to be." "So what does that mean?" Victoria stood, pulling up the West Side project file one last time. She looked at the renderings, the financial projections, the timeline that had consumed 2 years of her life. Then she looked at the map, at the little address on Ashland and Fifth, at the place where everything had started to fall apart, or come together. She wasn't sure which. "It means I'm done playing their game." She walked back to the conference room. The board members looked up, expectant. "I've made my decision," Victoria said. Garrison leaned back, victorious. "Smart choice." "I'm not stepping down." The room erupted, voices overlapping, angry and shocked. "Then we're calling the vote," Garrison snapped. "Call it," Victoria said. "But before you do, I want you to know something. I'm canceling the West Side project." Dead silence. "You can't do that," Chen said. "I just did." Effective immediately, I'm halting all construction, terminating all contracts, and returning the land acquisitions to the original owners. Garrison's face went red. That's corporate suicide. We'll lose hundreds of millions. The lawsuits alone will destroy the company. Probably, Victoria agreed, but at least I'll be able to sleep at night. You're insane. Maybe. Or maybe I finally figured out what actually matters. She looked around the table. You all taught me that business isn't personal, that emotions are weaknesses, that winning is the only thing that counts, and I believed you. For years, I believed you. Victoria, someone started. But you were wrong. Business is personal. Every decision we make affects real people with real lives. And if we forget that, if we treat human beings like obstacles to profit, then we're not leaders. We're just predators in suits. This is ridiculous, Garrison said. You're throwing away your entire career for some man and his kid? No, Victoria said. I'm throwing it away because it's the right thing to do, and because I'd rather lose everything than become the person you want me to be. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly, then hit send. What did you just do? Garrison demanded. Send a press release. Hale Enterprises is canceling the West Side development, effective immediately. All displaced tenants will retain their homes. No evictions, no demolitions. The room exploded again, but Victoria didn't stay to hear it. She walked out, Jeremy scrambling after her. Do you have any idea what you just did? He asked. Yeah, I committed career suicide, probably actual suicide too once the lawyers get through with me. Victoria, I need you to do something for me, she said, stopping at her office door. Get me the contact information for every tenant in the West Side zone. I need to make some calls. Jeremy stared at her. You're serious about this? Completely. You're going to lose everything. I know. And you're okay with that? Victoria thought about Liam, about Mia, about the way it felt to sit in that cramped apartment eating Thai food and feeling more alive than she had in years. Yeah, she said, I am. By noon, the news had broken. Victoria's phone was ringing nonstop. Reporters, investors, lawyers, all demanding statements and explanations. She ignored them all, sitting in her office making calls to tenants instead. Mrs. Okoye cried when Victoria told her she could stay in her apartment. Danny Chen was speechless. Maria Torres screamed so loud Victoria had to hold the phone away from her ear. You're serious? Maria kept asking. This isn't a joke? It's not a joke. You're staying. Everyone's staying. Why? Why would you do this? Victoria looked out at the city, at the empire she was watching crumble in real time. Because someone reminded me that people matter more than buildings. She saved Liam's call for last, her hands shaking as she dialed. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, I was just about to text you. Mia's been... I canceled the project, Victoria said. Silence. Liam? Say that again. I canceled the West Side development. It's done. You get to keep your home. She heard his breath catch. Victoria, what did you do? Something really stupid, or really brave. I'm not sure which. Are you okay? The question, simple and genuine, nearly broke her. I don't know. The board's trying to remove me. There are going to be lawsuits, a lot of lawsuits. I might lose the company. But you did it anyway. Yeah. Why? Victoria closed her eyes. Because you were right about all of it. This company, this career, it's not worth what I thought it was. Not if it means destroying people's lives. Not if it means losing you and Mia. Another silence, longer this time. Where are you right now? Liam asked. My office. Stay there. I'm coming to you. Liam, you don't have to. But he'd already hung up. 40 minutes later, her secretary buzzed. Ms. Hale, there's a Liam Carter here with a child. He says it's important. Victoria's heart jumped. Send him in. The door opened, and Liam walked in carrying Mia, who immediately squealed when she saw Victoria. Toria! Victoria crossed the room, taking Mia into her arms, breathing in that baby shampoo smell that had become so familiar. Hey, sweetheart. Hi, Mia said, patting her face. You sad? A little bit. No sad. Cookie? Victoria laughed despite everything. I forgot the cookies. That's okay, Liam said. We didn't come for cookies. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Why did you come? Because you just gave up everything for us. And I needed to make sure you knew you weren't alone. Victoria's eyes filled. Liam, I know this is fast. I know it's complicated and messy and probably insane, but I don't care. You fought for us. Now I'm fighting for you. There's nothing to fight for. I made my choice. Yeah, you did. And it was the right one. Liam stepped closer, Mia between them like a bridge. So what happens now? Now I probably get sued into bankruptcy, lose my company, and end up working at a coffee shop somewhere. Sounds terrible. It really does. But, Victoria looked at Mia, then at Liam. But I'd rather be broke and human than rich and empty. Liam kissed her, soft and sure, Mia giggling between them. When they pulled apart, Victoria's phone was ringing again. Jeremy. She answered. Yeah? The board just voted. 11-1, you're out. Victoria closed her eyes. Okay, Victoria, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It was worth it. She hung up, looking at Liam. They fired me. I heard. I'm officially unemployed. Welcome to the club. It's not as bad as it sounds. Victoria laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. I just threw away a billion-dollar company. You saved 200 families. That's not how the market's going to see it. Who cares what the market thinks? Victoria stared at him. You're taking this remarkably well. That's because I'm not the one who just lost everything. No, you just got involved with someone who did. Liam shrugged. I've been broke before. We'll figure it out. We, Victoria repeated. Yeah, we. Unless you don't want... I want, Victoria said quickly. I definitely want. Mia squirmed, wanting down. Victoria set her on the floor, and she immediately toddled over to the windows, pressing her hands against the glass. Big, she declared. Very big, Liam agreed. Victoria's phone buzzed. A news alert. Former Hale CEO's shocking decision sends shockwaves through development industry. She showed it to Liam. I'm going to be on every business channel for weeks. Probably. They're going to tear me apart. Let them. Victoria looked at him, this man who'd somehow become the center of her world in less than 2 months, and realized she meant what she'd said. She'd rather have this, have him and Mia in a future she couldn't predict, than all the power and money in the world. I need to clear out my office, she said. Want help? Yeah, I'd like that. They spent the next hour packing up her things. 20 years of work condensed into 3 cardboard boxes. Awards, photos, business cards from people who'd stop returning her calls by tomorrow. Mia helped, which mostly meant pulling things out of boxes as fast as Victoria could put them in. She's very efficient, Victoria observed. She's a chaos agent, Liam corrected. But she's our chaos agent. Our. The word settled warm in Victoria's chest. When they finished, Liam carried 2 boxes and Victoria carried 1, Mia on her hip. They walked through the office, past cubicles where people pointedly looked away, too uncomfortable to meet her eyes. In the lobby, Jeremy was waiting. I wanted to say goodbye, he said. Victoria set down the box, pulling him into a hug. Thank you for everything. What are you going to do now? I have no idea, but I'll figure it out. Jeremy pulled back, studying her face. You look different. Different how? Happy, Victoria smiled. I am. They left through the front doors and Victoria didn't look back. Outside, the city was bright and loud, rush hour traffic clogging the streets. Victoria's driver was waiting, but she waved him off. We'll walk, she told Liam. It's 20 blocks. I know, but I want to. So they walked, the 3 of them, through the city Victoria had helped build. Mia rode on Liam's shoulders, pointing at pigeons and buses and street performers. Victoria carried her single box, feeling lighter than she had in years. Halfway home, it started to rain. Of course it does, Liam said, laughing. Victoria tilted her face up, letting the water wash over her. I don't mind. You're getting soaked. I know. She looked at him, at Mia sheltered under his jacket, and smiled. But I'm not alone. Liam shifted Mia, reaching for Victoria's hand. No, you're not. They kept walking, and somewhere behind them, the Hale Tower stood against the skyline, gleaming and untouchable. But Victoria didn't notice. She was already home. The next morning, Victoria woke up in Liam's apartment. She wasn't supposed to be there. She told herself she'd go back to her penthouse, get get her life in order, figure out her next move. But when they'd gotten back, soaked and laughing, Liam had offered her dry clothes and Mia had insisted she stay for dinner. And somehow dinner had turned into a movie, and the movie had turned into falling asleep on the couch, while Mia snored softly between them. Now, morning light filtered through the thin curtains, and Victoria could hear Liam in the kitchen, the soft clink of dishes, the smell of coffee. Mia was curled against her side, thumb in her mouth, completely at peace. Victoria's phone was on the coffee table, silent. She'd turned off notifications last night, unable to handle the constant stream of emails and calls and messages from people who wanted explanations, or blood, or both. She didn't regret it. Not the decision, not the consequences. But she was terrified. "You're awake," Liam said, appearing with 2 mugs of coffee. Victoria carefully extracted herself from Mia, taking the offered cup. "What time is it?" "Almost 8. I let you sleep." "I didn't mean to crash here." "I'm glad you did." They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee while Mia slept. "So," Liam said eventually, "what's the plan?" "I don't have one." "That's new for you." "Everything about this is new for me." Victoria set down her mug. "I've never not had a plan. Even when my life was falling apart, I had a strategy for rebuilding. But now you're free-falling." "Yeah." "How does it feel?" Victoria considered. "Terrifying and kind of amazing." Liam smiled. "That sounds about right." "I have some money saved," Victoria said. "Enough to last a while, even with the lawsuits. But eventually I'm going to need to work." "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. I've only ever done one thing." "So do something different." Victoria looked at him. "Like what?" "Whatever you want. You're Victoria Hale. You're brilliant and driven, and now you don't have a board telling you what to care about. So figure out what actually matters to you, and do that." It sounded so simple when he said it. Mia stirred, opening her eyes. When she saw Victoria, she smiled, sleepy and sweet. "Victoria stay?" Victoria's chest tightened. "Yeah, sweetheart. I stayed." "Good." Mia climbed into her lap, and Victoria held her close, breathing in that baby smell, feeling small arms wrap around her neck. This was what mattered. Not buildings or profits or board meetings. This. Over the next week, Victoria's world continued to unravel. The lawsuits came fast. Investors suing for breach of fiduciary duty. Contractors suing for canceled projects. Former board members suing for damages. Her lawyers told her she was looking at years of litigation and potentially hundreds of millions in settlements. Victoria listened to their dire predictions and felt nothing but relief that she'd done the right thing. She moved out of the penthouse, the space too big and empty now. Instead, she rented a small apartment 3 blocks from Liam's building. 1 bedroom, outdated kitchen, a view of a brick wall. It was perfect. She started spending her days differently. Morning coffee with Liam before he left for work. Afternoons with Mia, teaching her colors and letters, and how to make a mess with finger paints. Evenings helping Maria with her kids' homework or joining the card games at the community center. People who'd been afraid of her before now invited her to dinner. Kids who'd hidden when she walked by now ran up to show her drawings. She wasn't Victoria Hale, CEO, anymore. She was just Victoria, and she liked her better. One afternoon, sitting in the park watching Mia play, Maria sat down beside her. "Can I ask you something?" Maria said. "Sure." "Why did you really do it? Cancel the project?" Victoria watched Mia climb the slide, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Because I realized I'd spent my whole life building things that didn't matter and tearing down things that did, and I couldn't do it anymore." Maria nodded slowly. "You gave up everything." "Not everything. I have Liam, I have Mia, I have this neighborhood. That's more than I had before." "Even if you lose all your money?" "Even then," Maria smiled, "you're either the bravest person I know or the craziest." "Definitely crazy," Victoria agreed. "But I think I'm okay with that." That night, Liam cooked dinner while Victoria attempted to give Mia a bath. It was a disaster involving more water on the floor than in the tub. But Mia laughed so hard she got hiccups, and Victoria counted it as a win. After Mia was in bed, Liam and Victoria sat on the couch, her feet in his lap, both of them exhausted. "Jeremy called today," Victoria said. "Yeah?" "The board's trying to rehire me. Full reinstatement, plus a raise." Liam's hand stilled on her ankle. What did you say? I said no. Just like that? Just like that. Victoria looked at him. That life is over. I don't want it back. What do you want? Victoria thought about it. I want to build something new, something that actually helps people. Maybe affordable housing development or community restoration. I don't know exactly what yet, but something that matters. That sounds perfect. It sounds terrifying. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Victoria laughed. No, I guess they're not. Liam pulled her closer, and she curled into his side, fitting there like she'd been designed for this exact spot. I love you, he said quietly. Victoria's breath caught. They hadn't said it yet, both of them too scared, too aware of how fast everything was moving. But hearing it now, feeling the truth of it in the way he held her, Victoria felt something settle deep in her chest. I love you too, she whispered. They sat there in the quiet, and outside the city kept moving, kept changing, kept being itself. But inside this small apartment, with Mia sleeping down the hall and Liam's heartbeat steady under her ear, Victoria had everything she needed. The empire she'd built was gone, but she'd found something better. She'd found home. 3 months after Victoria walked away from Hale Enterprises, the lawsuits were still piling up. She sat in her lawyer's office on a Tuesday morning, listening to him explain the latest filing. Something about breach of contract and financial damages and a number with so many zeros, it stopped meaning anything. Bottom line, Marcus said, sliding the document across his desk, they're asking for $420 million. Victoria didn't flinch. Add it to the pile. Victoria, this is serious. If even half of these suits succeed, you're looking at complete financial ruin. I know. You could settle, offer a percentage, negotiate terms. No, Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. You're the most stubborn client I've ever had. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is when stubbornness costs you everything you own. Victoria stood, gathering her bag. I didn't own anything that mattered, Marcus. That's why I walked away. Outside, the morning was crisp, autumn turning the trees along the street into fire. Victoria walked the 12 blocks back to her apartment, thinking about numbers. $420 million. Added to the 300 from the previous suits, the 180 from the one before that. She'd stopped keeping track somewhere around the $1 billion mark. The money she had saved was disappearing fast, eaten up by legal fees and the costs of simply existing. At this rate, she had maybe 8 months before she was completely broke. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt strangely calm. When she got home, Liam was in her kitchen making lunch. He had a key now, had been staying over more nights than not. His toothbrush next to hers in the bathroom, his coffee mug in her cabinet. Mia was at the table, coloring with the intensity of a 3-year-old on a mission. How'd it go? Liam asked, not looking up from the sandwich he was assembling. Another $400 million. His hands stilled. Jesus. It's fine. Victoria, it's fine, she repeated, kissing Mia's head. What are we making, sweetheart? Dinosaur, Mia announced, holding up a paper covered in purple scribbles. That's a very good dinosaur. Best dinosaur. Absolutely the best. Liam set a plate in front of her, studying her face. You're really okay with this? Victoria took a bite of sandwich, considering. I spent 20 years building an empire I didn't actually want. Now I'm losing it, and all I feel is relief. So yeah, I'm okay. What about when the money runs out? Then I'll get a job. Wait tables, stock shelves, whatever pays. You're Victoria Hale. Not anymore. Now I'm just Victoria. And Victoria needs to figure out how to pay rent like everyone else. Liam sat down beside her, taking her hand. We'll figure it out together. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Mia looked between them, then climbed into Victoria's lap, sticky fingers leaving grape jelly prints on her shirt. Love you, Toria. Victoria's throat tightened. Love you too, baby. This was worth more than any empire. That afternoon, Victoria walked to the community center for the weekly planning meeting. After she'd canceled the West Side project, the neighborhood had formed a collective to discuss the area's future, and somehow Victoria had become part of it. Maria was already there, along with Danny Chen, Mrs. Okoye, and about 15 others. They met in the basement, sitting in folding chairs around a battered conference table that had seen better decades. All right, Maria said, calling the meeting to order. First item. The city's proposing new zoning regulations that could affect rent control. They spent an hour discussing strategy, reaching out to council members, organizing tenant advocacy. Victoria took notes, contributed ideas, felt useful in a way she never had in boardrooms. When the meeting ended, Danny caught up with her outside. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he asked. "Sure." They walked to the small park across the street, sitting on a bench near the playground. "I've been thinking," Danny said, "about what you did, canceling the project." "Okay. And I realized something. You gave up everything to save this neighborhood, but you never asked for anything in return." Victoria shrugged. "I didn't do it for returns." "I know. That's my point." Danny pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. "Some of us have been talking. We want to help." He handed her the paper. Victoria unfolded it, scanning the contents. It was a petition signed by over 100 residents. "What is this?" "It's a community investment fund. Everyone who was saved by your decision is contributing what they can. $5, $50, whatever people can afford. We're pooling it to help you with the legal fees." Victoria's eyes blurred. "Danny, I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because you need this money. You all do. And we needed our homes more. You gave us that. Now let us give you this." Victoria looked at the signatures, page after page of names, people she'd met at the community center, families she'd helped relocate before she canceled the project, neighbors who'd invited her to dinner, to birthday parties, to become part of something bigger than herself. "This is $17,000, she said, her voice shaking. "It's a start. We're not stopping until you're clear." "That could take years." "Then we'll keep going for years." Danny smiled. "You're one of us now, Victoria, and we take care of our own." Victoria pulled him into a hug, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you." "Thank you," Danny said, "for remembering we're people, not problems." That night, Victoria showed Liam the petition. They were in his apartment, Mia asleep in the next room, the TV playing something neither of them was watching. $17,000, Liam said, amazed, from people who can barely afford groceries. "That's how you know it matters." Victoria leaned against him, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do." "I destroyed lives for years, Liam. I built my fortune by displacing people, by prioritizing profit over everything else. One good decision doesn't erase that." "No, but it's a start, and you're not that person anymore." "How do you know?" Liam turned her to face him. "Because that person wouldn't be sitting here crying over $17,000 from people she barely knows. That person wouldn't have given up billions to do the right thing. That person wouldn't be in love with a broke single dad and his chaotic toddler." Victoria laughed through her tears. "When you put it that way, you've changed, and change is hard and it's messy, and you're going to make mistakes, but you're trying. That's what matters." She kissed him, soft and grateful and full of everything she couldn't say. When they pulled apart, Liam was smiling. "What?" Victoria asked. "I have something to tell you." "Good something or bad something?" "Good, I think." He took a breath. "I got a promotion. Warehouse supervisor. Comes with a salary instead of hourly. Health insurance, the works." Victoria threw her arms around him. "Liam, that's amazing. It's not CEO money, but it's better than CEO money. It's real. It means we could get a bigger place, together, if you want." Victoria pulled back, searching his face. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking if you want to build something with me. A home. A life. All of it." Victoria thought about her empty penthouse, the one she'd sold last month, about this small apartment that had never quite felt like hers, about Liam's place, cramped and cluttered and full of Mia's toys and laughter, about what home actually meant. "Yes," she said, "I want all of it." They started looking for apartments the next week. It was harder than Victoria expected. Her credit was good, but her employment history was now a mess of terminated positions and pending lawsuits. Landlords took one look at her application and passed. "Maybe we should just stay where we are," Liam suggested after the 5th rejection. "No, we need more space. Mia's growing and I'm tired of living out of boxes." "Then we'll keep looking." They found it 3 weeks later, a 3rd-floor walk-up on the edge of the neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen big enough for a real table, windows that actually let in light. The building was old, the floors creaked, and the radiator made alarming noises at night. Victoria loved it immediately. The landlord, a woman named Ruth who'd lived in the building for 40 years, recognized Victoria from the news. "You're the one who stopped that development," Ruth said. Victoria braced for judgment. "Yes? Good. This neighborhood doesn't need luxury condos. It needs people who give a damn." Ruth handed her the lease. "First month, last month, 1 month security. You can move in next week." They signed the papers that afternoon. Moving day was chaos. Victoria didn't have much. Her belongings condensed to what she'd salvaged from the penthouse and what she'd accumulated in her small apartment. Liam had even less, but between them, with Mia helping by unpacking boxes as fast as they filled them, they managed. Maria came by with food. Danny brought his truck for the furniture. Mrs. Okoye arrived with homemade curtains she'd sewn herself. By evening, the apartment was a disaster of half-unpacked boxes and mismatched furniture, but it was theirs. Liam ordered pizza, and they ate sitting on the floor, Mia between them, tomato sauce on her face. "This is perfect," Victoria said. Liam looked around at the mess. "Really?" "Really." Because it was. Imperfect and chaotic, and nothing like the life she'd planned. But it was real. And it was theirs. That night, after Mia was asleep in her new room, Victoria and Liam stood at the window, looking out at the neighborhood. Lights in windows, people coming home from work, kids playing in the street below. "I never thought I'd end up here," Victoria said. "Broke and living in a walk-up?" "Happy," Liam pulled her close. "Yeah, me neither." "Do you ever regret it? Getting involved with me, I mean. Your life was simple before. My life was survival before. Now it's actually living." He kissed her temple. "No regrets." Victoria turned in his arms, looking up at him. "I love you. I know I said it before, but I need you to know how much. You saved me, Liam. You and Mia. You taught me what actually matters." "We saved each other," Liam corrected. "You gave us stability, a future. You fought for us when no one else would have." "I'm still fighting. The lawsuits will work out however they work out, and we'll handle it together." Victoria rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and sure. For the first time in her life, she wasn't planning 10 steps ahead, wasn't strategizing or calculating or trying to control the outcome. She was just here, present, grateful. The lawsuits dragged on for another 8 months. Victoria spent her days in depositions and court appearances, watching lawyers argue over numbers that no longer meant anything to her. She'd lost count of how much she owed, how much she'd already paid, how much was still coming. Her savings dwindled to almost nothing. But she had a job now, working at Maria's brother's construction company doing project coordination. It didn't pay much, but it was honest work, and she was good at it. She knew how to read plans, manage timelines, negotiate with contractors. Turned out, all those years running a development company had given her skills that translated. Liam's promotion meant they could cover rent and groceries with a little left over. They lived carefully, budgeting every dollar, shopping sales, learning to make meals stretch. Mia started preschool, and Victoria cried, dropping her off the first day, overwhelmed by how fast she was growing, how much she'd come to love this little girl who wasn't hers by blood, but was hers in every way that mattered. Life wasn't easy. Money was tight, stress was constant, and there were nights Victoria lay awake wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. But then Mia would climb into bed between her and Liam, warm and sleepy, asking for pancakes in the morning. Or Maria would text about the new apartment she'd found, affordable and near the kids' school, thanks to the community fund. Or Danny would stop by with leftovers from the restaurant he'd opened, small but thriving. And Victoria would remember why she'd done it. Not for glory or redemption or even forgiveness, but because some things were worth more than winning. The final lawsuit settled on a cold morning in February. Victoria sat in the courtroom, her lawyer beside her, as the judge approved the terms. She'd liquidate her remaining assets, pay out settlements totaling just under $800 million, and walk away with nothing. Well, not nothing. She'd keep her car, a 10-year-old sedan she'd bought used, her personal belongings, and enough money to cover 3 months of rent. Everything else was gone. The empire she'd built over 20 years, dismantled in 18 months. Outside the courthouse, Marcus pulled her aside. "How are you doing?" he asked. I'm broke. I know. I meant emotionally. Victoria thought about it. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. You just lost everything. No, I lost money. There's a difference. Marcus smiled, shaking his head. You're the strangest client I've ever had. I'll take that as a compliment. She walked home, the winter air sharp against her face. The city looked different now, not because it had changed, but because she had. She noticed things she'd never seen before. Small shops struggling to stay open. Families bundled against the cold. People helping each other. Small kindnesses that happened every day without fanfare. The world she'd lived in before, all glass towers and corporate mergers, felt like a dream she'd woken up from. This was real. When she got home, Liam was making dinner and Mia was building a tower with blocks. How'd it go? Liam asked. It's done. All of it. He crossed the kitchen, pulling her into his arms. Are we okay? We're better than okay. We have each other. Mia abandoned her blocks, running over to hug Victoria's legs. Victoria, home! Victoria scooped her up, breathing in that little kid smell of shampoo and playground dirt. Yeah, baby. I'm home. They ate dinner together. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad. Mia told them about her day at preschool, something involving finger paint and a very patient teacher. Liam talked about a project at work, expansion plans that would mean more jobs. Victoria listened, contributing when asked, mostly just soaking in the normalcy of it all. This was her life now. No boardrooms, no power plays, no empire to maintain. Just this. Just them. And it was enough. After dinner, after Mia was in bed, after the dishes were washed and put away, Victoria and Liam sat on the couch, exhausted and content. I have something to tell you, Liam said. Victoria's heart jumped. Good something or bad something? Good. At least, I hope you think it's good. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Victoria stopped breathing. I know the timing's terrible, Liam said, opening the box to reveal a simple silver ring. You're broke, I'm barely not broke, and we're living paycheck to paycheck. But I love you, and Mia loves you, and I want to build a life with you officially. So Victoria Hale, will you marry me? Victoria stared at the ring, tears streaming down her face. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago. Cold, calculating, alone in a penthouse that echoed with emptiness. That woman would have said this was insane, marrying a warehouse supervisor when she could have had anyone. But that woman was gone. And the woman she'd become, the one sitting on a secondhand couch in a creaky apartment, holding hands with a man who saw her as human, not a trophy, that woman knew exactly what she wanted. Yes, she said. Yes, absolutely yes. Liam slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Not expensive, not flashy, just real, like everything else in her life now. They got married 3 months later in the community center, the same place they'd fought across a crowded room 2 years ago. Maria stood up as Victoria's maid of honor. Danny walked her down the aisle. Mrs. Okoye cried through the entire ceremony. Mia was the flower girl, throwing petals with enthusiastic abandon, half of them ending up in her hair. The ceremony was simple, the reception potluck, the decorations handmade. It was nothing like the society wedding Victoria's mother had once planned for her, all designer gowns and 300-person guest lists. It was better, because everyone there actually cared about them, not their money or status or connections, just them. When Liam kissed her, when the room erupted in cheers, Victoria felt something settle deep in her soul. She was home. Finally, truly home. They couldn't afford a honeymoon, so they spent a long weekend at a cabin upstate that Maria's cousin let them use for free. 3 days of quiet, of sleeping in, of Mia running through the trees while Victoria and Liam remembered what it felt like to just breathe. On their last night, they sat on the porch after Mia was asleep, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Do you ever miss it? Liam asked. The money, the power, all of it? Victoria considered the question honestly. Sometimes. Not the money itself, but what it represented. Security, control, never having to worry. But I'd rather have this. I'd rather worry about rent with you than have everything and be alone. She looked at him. Money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy what we have. What do we have? A family, real love, a home that matters. She smiled. Turns out that's worth more than any empire. Liam kissed her, soft and sweet, and for a moment the world was perfect. When they got back to the city, back to their walk-up and their jobs and their carefully budgeted life, Victoria started something new. She'd been thinking about it for months, turning the idea over, wondering if it was possible. Now, with the lawsuits finally settled, with her life finally stable, she decided to try. She started a nonprofit. It was small at first, just her and a borrowed desk at the community center. She called it Second Foundations, and its mission was simple: help people displaced by development find affordable housing and community support. She had no funding, no staff, just her experience and her determination. But word spread. People she'd helped during the West Side crisis started reaching out, asking if she could help their friends, their family, other neighborhoods facing displacement. Small donations came in, $5 here, $20 there, from people who understood what it meant to lose a home. Within 6 months, Second Foundations had helped 15 families find housing. Within a year, it was 50. Victoria worked longer hours than she ever had as a CEO for a fraction of the pay. She wrote grants, met with city officials, coordinated volunteers, did whatever was needed. And she loved every minute of it, because this time she was building something that actually mattered. Mia started kindergarten that fall. Victoria walked her to school on the first day, holding her hand, fighting back tears. "You're crying," Mia observed. "Happy tears, baby." "Why happy?" "Because you're growing up. And I get to be here to see it." Mia thought about this. "You're my mama, right?" Victoria's breath caught. They'd never labeled it, never made it official. Mia called her Toria, and that had always been enough. But hearing her say it, claim it, made Victoria's heart crack wide open. "If you want me to be." "I want." Mia squeezed her hand. "You're my mama and Daddy's my daddy, and we're a family." "Yes, sweetheart, we are." At the school gates, Mia let go of her hand and ran toward her classroom without looking back, confident and fearless. Victoria stood there, watching her go, overwhelmed with gratitude for this life she'd stumbled into. She'd thought she was saving Liam and Mia when she canceled the project. But the truth was, they'd saved her. They'd shown her what it meant to be human, to care about something beyond profit, to build a life based on love instead of achievement. She'd lost her empire. But she'd gained a family, and that trade, difficult and terrifying and financially devastating as it had been, was the best decision she'd ever made. That night, the three of them sat at their kitchen table, doing homework and paying bills and planning the week ahead. Normal, domestic, beautifully mundane. Liam looked up from the calendar. "Maria's having a birthday party for her youngest next Saturday. We're invited." "We'll be there," Victoria said. "And the community center needs volunteers for the food drive. Put me down for Thursday afternoon." "You're working Thursday afternoon." "Then Friday. I'll make it work." Liam smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You know, for someone who used to run a billion-dollar company, you've gotten really good at this regular person thing." Victoria looked at their joined hands, at Mia coloring beside them, at this life they'd built together. "I'm not a regular person," she said. "I'm incredibly lucky." And she meant it. Because somewhere along the way, in between losing everything and finding herself, Victoria had learned the most important lesson of her life. Wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or property holdings or stock portfolios. It was measured in moments like this. In people who loved you not for what you could give them, but for who you were. In children who called you mama. In communities that became family. She'd been the richest woman in the city once, but she'd never been wealthy, not until she had nothing left but love. And love, it turned out, was the only thing that ever really mattered. Years later, when Mia was older and asked about her life, Victoria would tell her this story. She'd tell her about the empire she'd built and the empire she'd destroyed. About the choice she'd made and the price she'd paid. But mostly, she'd tell her about the day a 2-year-old girl smiled at her in the rain and changed everything. Because that was the moment Victoria Hale stopped winning and started living. And in the end, living was so much better than winning had ever been. The small apartment on Ashland Street, the one that had almost been demolished for luxury condos, was filled with laughter that evening. Liam was teaching Mia how to make paper airplanes, and Victoria was pretending to grade them with exaggerated seriousness. Outside, the neighborhood was alive with the sounds of people coming home, of families gathering, of life happening in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Victoria looked out the window at the street she'd once marked for destruction, at the community she'd almost erased, and felt nothing but gratitude. She'd learned what her father never understood, what the board would never accept, what her younger self could never have imagined. That true power wasn't about controlling outcomes or maximizing profits or building empires. True power was about knowing when to let go, when to choose people over progress, when to sacrifice everything for the chance to be fully, completely, imperfectly human. She'd spent her whole life trying to win, but she'd only started living when she learned how to lose. And that made all the difference.